All right, I have actually two questions about Melchizedek, so I'm kind of going to throw them
Okay.
together here since we're going to be talking about the same thing in context. Here's the first one. In Genesis, we see priest and tithe mentioned for the first time. Also, this was the first description of a sacrament. Jesus was the order of Melchizedek. King David knew of it. What do we know or theorize about King Melchizedek, the order, and Salem?
Salem being the city of Jerusalem. Okay,
And then, well, here's the second
Yeah,
one.
okay.
Was Melchizedek Jesus?
Right.
If so, why wasn't he called angel of the Lord like in all the other instances of Christ's Old Testament appearances? And if not, then who is the Melchizedek, King of Peace, Salem, one of Christ's many titles? So
Okay.
you can kind of do all that.
Yeah, there's some people who believe that Melchizedek is Jesus because Paul in the book of Hebrews in chapter 7 uses Melchizedek as a type of Christ. And so I'm going to read that. For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him, to whom also Abraham gave a tenth part of all, first being translated king of righteousness, and then also king of Salem, meaning king of peace, without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like the Son of God, remains a priest continually. And it goes on and talks about the fact that Abraham submitted himself to Melchizedek, and that because Levi came from Abraham, ultimately, it goes Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then Levi, but Levi came from Abraham, and so Levi was giving tithes through Abraham to Melchizedek, and then he finishes it off with a passage from the Psalms that talks about Jesus being after the order, you are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. And that's out of Psalm 110.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you're in Hebrews 7?
Hebrews chapter 7.
Okay.
Okay, so one of the things you need to keep in mind is when this is being written in the book of Hebrews, it's not saying that Jesus is Melchizedek. It's using Melchizedek as a type of Christ. And so I don't believe that Jesus was Melchizedek, because the problem with that would be is Melchizedek has a history. He's the king of Salem. Salem is Jerusalem before it became Jerusalem. And so he's the king of Salem. He's a priest there. He lived there. And so you'd have to have Jesus sitting in the city of Salem for years and years and years, fulfilling the whole issue with the priesthood of Melchizedek. So this is a type. And when it says that Melchizedek was without father, without mother, this is rabbinical typology. And so the point that's being made is we don't know anything about his father. We don't know anything about his mother. We don't know anything about his beginning. We don't know anything about the end of his life. And so that fits into the type of who Jesus is. He's without father, without mother, without beginning, without end. And that's the point that's being made there. And again, so you have that. So when you talk about Melchizedek himself, he's obviously a real guy. He's obviously somebody that Abraham respected, and he's obviously somebody that knows the Lord. When you read the passage back in the book of Genesis, in Genesis chapter 14, Abraham is giving tithes to Melchizedek, and Melchizedek is of all things bringing out bread and wine. And so great type of Christ there. And that's what it is. It's a type of Christ. I don't believe that that's Jesus himself. If it had been Jesus himself, then when you get to chapter 18 of the book of Genesis, it talks about the Lord coming and speaking to Abraham. That is a Christophany, or an appearance of Christ in the Old Testament. And it doesn't say that was Melchizedek that came up to Abraham at that point. And so there's kind of a disconnect there for those who think that Melchizedek is Jesus. And so again, that's my opinion. When we're talking about him being a priest and the whole issue of tithing being mentioned and that kind of stuff, one of the things that a lot of times we forget is that everybody got off the same boat. So when you're at the time of Abraham, you're about 10 generations away from the flood. And so after the flood, what took place is Noah and his sons got off the boat, and then they began repopulating the earth. And so Noah had a relationship with God. Noah knew about righteousness and about sacrifice and about all of that. And that would have been passed down to Noah's children and grandchildren right on down the line. And Melchizedek would have been one of the faithful that stayed true to following the Lord during that time between the flood and the time of Abraham. And so, that's all he is. And again, Abraham considered him to be a believer.
Alrighty.